Today we're taking a peek in the cleaning space with a cordless vacuum cleaner. Hey folks, welcome back to TechGooch, and today we're looking at a cordless vacuum cleaner. This from a company called TOCMOC. It reminds me of the older Dyson vacuums, Dyson cordless, which I used to own one of the older models as well. It does not really remind me too much of the current models like the V10, V11, even back to the V8. Those are going to be a little bit higher class than even this guy is, just to get into it real quick. But at $200, is it worth $200? So we're going to actually put it head-to-head upstairs here just a little bit. Against my V11, which is the torque model, which essentially is the same as the animal model with some added accessories. So is it worth $200 versus a $600 vacuum? So literally a third of the price of what the Dyson is that I currently have. But I've actually owned a Dyson DC59, which was their when they still had the DC lineup of the cordless vacuums before they went to the V series. I'm going to compare it to at least my remembrance of that, because I owned that vacuum for a few years actually before I upgraded to the V10, and then of course eventually now the V11. But those are our primary vacuums now versus the DC59 was kind of a secondary vacuum. To get out of to kind of talk about it a little bit, this is actually a decent vacuum for small spaces or for like apartments. Big houses, it's going to be your secondary. It's never going to actually be your primary. In the box, you get the vacuum, obviously, with the motorized brush head. You do get an instruction manual. You do get a power charging cable. What they claim as a wall mount, it is, but it isn't, to be honest about it. And then a couple attachments, your crevice and then your brush head attachment. So simple in terms of what comes with it. If you go by the vacuum cleaning capability, or I should say the suction and time of suction they have. So basically they have what they call a standard mode, and then they have a high power mode. And those two modes obviously will affect the battery life, but also the suction. The standard mode, 11 kilopascals of suction, 28 minutes of vacuuming. In high mode, that doubles it to 22, but we go down to 11 minutes of vacuuming. And those 28 and 11 are, I would argue, fairly accurate. I think, it's hard to say, but I would say that's pretty darn accurate. I would guess that I got between 9 and 11 when I was just going in full mode, and more probably closer to the 25-minute mark in the standard, if I just did it in standard. But, of course, all things change depending on what you're sucking and how heavy of items you're doing. And I have a lot of dog hair, so it is what it is. Now, charge time. If you have to charge from all the way down to 100%, you're looking at about 5 hours of charge time on that as well. So, I'll tell you what, we're going to bring it in here. I'll show you a few things on the actual vacuum. Then we're going to head upstairs. We're going to put it on a really nice dirty floor with a lot of dog hair on it versus my V11. Then I'm going to show you how we empty the bin on this bad boy, and then we'll kind of close things out. Okay, so we obviously have the vacuum itself. I'm going to go ahead and detach the motorized head. Now this has not been cleaned for the last couple of times, but you can see here's the motorized head here. It is a almost full width head. It's not quite the full width, but it actually has the nice bristles on it. And to be honest, I don't really have too many suction problems in terms of things getting clogged, so that's always a big bonus. It does, rather than like the Dyson single wheel, it does have two wheels, which gives it a more flat feel to it, but it definitely turns a little bit different than if you're used to that Dyson feel. I think the attachments are pretty self-explanatory, right? So this guy here, the big thing that you're going to notice real quick is, well, even though this top pops off, and this, other than the sticker on the bottom, is the only thing that puts that brand label on it, which pretty much tells you that this vacuum is being sold under multiple brands. Also, there's no real filter. Yeah, you have suction, you have things, there's no real big big filter. It's just a small one that's actually housed inside the suction head here. So I'm used to having, I guess, the filter easily reachable on the top of the unit from the old Dysons, or on the back of the unit on the new Dyson with the HEPA filters. This still just has a traditional basic guy in here, as you can see right there. So you obviously have to clean this every so often, wash it. It's a washable filter, but it's, you know, it's pretty small, and I don't like where it's placed in the unit, just because of the fact that, well, I have to take the vacuum apart to get to it, and it shouldn't be difficult, and you shouldn't get your hands all nasty dirty just getting to the filter. So that, you know, that's the big problem, is no filter on the top. In my opinion, right? Of course. I do like the fact that it does fully come apart, so you can wash all of these pieces. The filter, the kind of the pre-filter, I guess, the screener, I guess, is maybe the best way to call it. Maybe that's what I should call it. These are easy to fully wash, like immerse in water, fully wash them, let them air dry completely, and then put them back on the motor head. To get to the cyclonic pieces up here, though, you're not going to ever wash those, because you're in with the electronics up in here. So yeah, this section is not going to be washable. Some of the Dyson vacuums, you can get to those parts, not as easy as you'd hope, but that is one of those differences as well. More of these parts on this vacuum are fully removable to wash, but then again, I also like to get into those cyclonic heads, because they do get like small debris that build up inside the actual cyclones themselves, and it's not going to affect it too much, but it is something to say, right? It is something to point out, just so you know. There's no trigger on this guy, even though there's a little funky thing here for a trigger. It's not triggered, right? It actually is a button. So if you have like arthritis, or you have where you don't like to pull a trigger all the time like the Dysons, you have to. This is, I turn it on, and it's going to run without me touching it. And then there's just a button here that goes between max mode and standard mode. So button on, and it's on. I don't have to worry about holding a trigger, which, to be honest, a trigger does get old after you're vacuuming for a while. But so that is a nice feature there. The battery pack, which obviously offsets some of the weight of the unit in your hand, that's where the charging piece is right inside the grip. So you have to literally open that little door and plug the charger in right there every time you want to charge it, and then you can take it off, and you can leave that on the wall and just grab the cord every time, but you'll always have a cord dangling. That is one of the bad parts, because my Dyson has a wall mount that actually the charger comes into, so when you mount this in the wall mount, it automatically charges, my Dyson that is, whereas this one, it doesn't have that capability. It really does not at all. The wall mount as well, this cheap plastic thing, as you saw before, the attachments kind of just quick go in here. However, when you actually, if you're going to put this on the wall, and this is designed to clip in here, it's not going to hold the vacuum at all. The vacuum has to literally be propped, sitting on the floor, and that means like the lower part, like this guy here, has to be sitting on the floor just like that, right? Which essentially, the vacuum, when attached, will actually stay essentially like that. It's actually standing upright right now. You can't see it, but I'm not touching it. It is holding itself upright. And so then you can back it, you mount this so it's at the right level, so it just backs right into place. And so in that account, all this does is not really wall mount the vacuum as it is. It allows you to back it up, click it into place, and it just kind of keeps it from falling over this way, right? So that's what it does. So it is a wall mount, but it isn't really a wall mount. It's kind of a cheap way of doing it. Screw holes to screw it, and it does come with drywall anchors and screws, and then there's even adhesive tape, so you could do one or the other, or both, to be honest. So that said, that's what it comes with. Let's head upstairs. Let's see how she runs. All right, so with me here, I have the TOCMOC T200, and then I have my Dyson V11. Now this is the torque model, but it's the same as the Animal. So you're talking a $200 vacuum versus, well, right now $500, but depending on what you're doing, right? there's benefits to both, but we're going to actually see this is a nice dirty floor. It's got my dog's hair all over it. We purposely didn't vacuum this week, so it would build up. And I'm going to do a pass on standard, and then I'm going to go on max with the TOCMOC, and then we'll go over to the V11 and compare it. So, all right, here we go. So turn it on. This is the minimum. Now I'm going to go into max. Alright, quick and simple, right? Now with my Dyson V11 out, we'll go the other direction. It's on auto, so it automatically selects what it needs. So yeah, you can see that the heads are not exactly the same. The Dyson's, the Dyson's a slight wider, but I think also because of the size of the head, the roller of the head, it's a lot larger in diameter, so it actually can pick up things faster. Now, also at the same time, if I go to max, this side will suck most things at max. It's kind of crazy. If I was to go over the carpet really fast with this one, in its minimum state, it leaves a lot behind, so I gotta go a little slower in the max. It does decent, but it's still not near as powerful as my Dyson V11. Not even remotely close, to be honest about it. The Dyson is a lot more powerful. But then again, you're also talking 200 versus, and like I said, this is right now 200. This is right now 500. So this one typically starts at 600 at its configuration. Mine, the Torque model, starts at 700. This is our primary vacuum. We sold all of our other vacuums to go to this one. I'm going to rate this guy right here, the TOCMOC, is closer to the old I had a DC59. That was my first cordless vacuum from Dyson. It's going to be closer to the DC59, maybe the V6. That's about as far as this one's going to go. It is not going to directly compete against the V10s or the V11s, not even the V8s, to be honest, from Dyson. They're going to be more powerful than what this TOCMOC is. Okay, so we're going to actually empty this guy. So first thing you have to do is you do have to take, well, technically you don't have to, but it's a lot easier to just take off the extension, and then you just have the vacuum head itself. And what we do, open the trash can, and on the front there is a release mechanism that we just push, and it opens up the drawer. Now there's nothing that pushes the stuff, so like in dog hair and stuff, there's nothing that really pushes it out. So what you got to do is on the top of this guy, see right there, if we actually push that button there and then twist just a little bit, it actually will separate the body from the bin. And then anything that's kind of stuck between the mechanism or the suction piece here, the filter thing in the bin, will fall out. Then you put it back on, you twist it and it locks back into place, close the bottom, and you're good to go again. You're right as new. So that is a lot different than, and actually it's very similar to the old way you would do the Dysons, but now the Dysons come out the front and they kind of have a rubber cleaning mechanism that skirts all the dust off without actually removing it. So it's a way of removing the bin without removing the bin. So this is a lot easier to get the stuff out of. However, there is benefits to being able to take off the bin very easily to clean it if you actually want to wash that bin. If you want to take this one off, you got to get it down, and then I got to do I have to push the bin back here, and then it can actually slide out. But so in all reality, to take it off to actually wash it and stuff, there is a benefit to that way. So there it is. There's what it looks like when it's standing again. The reason that this doesn't have to worry about mounting is because it does stand upright by itself. So that's kind of basically where you have to mount this, is at that height. But it does, flap over pretty easy. So that's why, basically that's all it does. It's hard to say it's a wall mount, it's more of a wall stabilizer. But yeah, there it is. So, where does this sit? In all reality, after using it, after trying it for as long as I have, if you have deep carpets, this is going to be a great vacuum for that. It does decent with dog hair, it really does. It's easy to get the dog hair out of there because you can take it apart so easily. So emptying is pretty easy. On top of that, it's not going to be a primary vacuum for most people. It really isn't. It's fine for small spaces. It's fine for like hard floors or semi-compact carpet, but deep carpet's really not going to do it. You know, I compared it to a Dyson, which is the top of the line current stick Dyson that they offer, versus this guy, and of course they're not comparable. They really aren't. My old DC59, absolutely it's comparable. V6, yes. Maybe even the V7, but V8 on up in the Dyson series is going to destroy with this. You know, it will have a lot more suction, but it has more pickup head, more speed. You know, you have the larger brush head, whereas those smaller or less expensive Dysons are very similar to this, to be honest. You know, the whole thing with the filter, I don't like that in order to get to the filter, you actually have to, basically, you have to take off the bin, and now you're getting into the dirty parts, and so you have to get your hand on the dirty parts to get the filter out. That I don't like either. Right? I'm not a big fan of that. But it's not terrible, and you're not going to do that every time you vacuum anyway. And it at least allows you to take all these apart and wash everything. So there is an upside to it, but it is something to bring up. So, in the end, traditionally you're talking $200, but right now you can get this for $140 versus, well, Dysons that are a lot more expensive. There's a lot of vacuums that are similar to this on the market. For $139, this really isn't a bad buy. It's actually a pretty solid vacuum for the money. Like I said, it's not going to compare to my other Dyson, but I wanted to kind of show you what money buys you, essentially. This is not a bad vacuum at all. At $139, it really is not a bad vacuum. So if you have a small space, you have a small apartment, you're just looking to, you know, do the steps and some small things with it, not a bad option to look at. The battery life's pretty good. I would say I wish a lot more for the wall mount, but again, think about what it is, think about the cost it's at. Okay, I don't know if I would wall mount it. I would still just kind of set it in the corner is how I was doing it. And then, you know, plug it into the adapter for charging it. And there is a light on top, so even if I turn this on real quick, the light up here, when you're charging, it is basically in quarters, essentially, is how it does it. And it's okay. I do like the new Dysons, the new V11s, because they actually have a power meter in percentage. Love that. Most of them aren't going to have that, so I'm okay with that. But I do like having that, at least. And of course, if you have arthritis or you have something with your hand where you can't really pull a trigger constantly, having the push button on, push button off, and then the max power suction button makes it really easy to use without worrying about holding a trigger the entire time. You're still obviously holding a vacuum, but you're going to be resting it on the floor for most of the time anyway. So, in the end, for the money, it's pretty good value, but it's not going to stack up to the higher stuff. That's as straightforward as I can get with it. So, I will put links directly to this exact vacuum in the description. Like I said, there are other ones out there, and I think they're actually very similar because of the fact that you take that off, and if I was to remove this sticker, there's no way to tell what this is. So, but this is the one that I have, and so I will put links to the one that I have in the description. So if you have any questions for me at all, please post those below. Subscribe to the channel, share the video if you can't, give it a thumbs up, and let me know. If you know anybody that has a similar vacuum to this, hey, great, post below. Otherwise, check out the link to Amazon, check it out, and if you have any other questions, let me know. Otherwise, we'll catch you back here on a future video review here on TechGooch. See you soon.